A teacher arrives to class one day with a jar, some big rocks, some pebbles, and some sand. She asks the students how they can fit the rocks, pebbles, and sand all inside the jar. The students discover that if they start with the sand or the pebbles, they run out of room. But if they start with the big rocks, there is still enough room in the empty space for everything else. So too we are told in life. If we start with the big rocks first, everything else will fall into place. We will have enough time for the big rocks and the pebbles and the sand. Everything fits. Except there's a problem with this analogy. As Oliver Burkeman writes in 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals, the real problem of time management isn't that we're bad at prioritizing the big rocks. It's that there are too many rocks. The critical question isn't how to differentiate between those that matter and those that don't, but what to do when far too many things feel at least somewhat important. When we confront the limits of our jars, our ability, our time, our lifespan, most people try to cram as much as possible inside. But time management for mortals teaches that no matter how much you make fit, there are always more big rocks waiting to be added. Truth is, it's impossible to carry them all. Instead, our task is to determine which big rocks to put into our jar and which we will leave behind. This metaphor applies to consequential moments and lighthearted decisions alike. Consider planning a vacation. The jar labeled vacation has limited space, how much time we can go away for, our budget, our physical stamina. And then we must choose from the many big rocks, each a potentially important element of our vacation. We could use this time for adventure or relaxation, visiting loved ones or getting away from it all, returning to a favorite location or exploring somewhere new, enjoying nature or a big city, savoring the local character of a neighborhood, or staying somewhere all-inclusive. No one rock is inherently better or worse than another, and any combination could produce a memorable trip, but you can't take all of those vacations at the same time. The stakes of choosing the wrong rocks on vacation may not be so high. But the same principle applies to far more monumentous moments. Which health insurance do you choose? Where do you raise your family? Do you support going to war? How are you going to live your life? In today's day and age, the factors that we can consider are endless. At our fingertips, we have access to millions of web pages, thousands of reviews, and a panoply of products. We can read news about anywhere in the world and connect online to almost anyone we have ever met, and literally billions of people that we haven't. All of this information can lead us to attempt to consider an ever greater number of factors, increasing the complexity of every choice, every opinion, every decision. The world is a complex place, as it should be. Don Norman, a scholar of design and engineering, teaches that human beings desire richness and need some complexity, some depth and texture to our stories, our work, our experiences. But far too often we are overloaded with complexity and complicating factors. And this overload makes us become frozen in place, unable to reach a decision, to prioritize, to figure out what we believe and how we want to act. In the news, we encounter so many problems in our city, our state, our country, and our world. It can feel impossible to know where to focus. And when we do focus on one issue, the complexity of trying to solve it can make us feel hopeless. We are bombarded with new studies and recommendations about how to live longer and how to improve our lives, including what to eat and how to structure your day, and 10 steps to reduce your stress, and the 23 tips for the perfect golf swing. But so many of those ideas are either impractical or contradictory, and we are no better off than before we attempted them. We add a gadget or a system to our lives, hoping it will improve one part of our life, only to discover that it complicates 3 other parts even more. In the face of complexity at home, at work, and in the world, we must find simplicity in our lives. Julia Hobsbawm, in her book, The Simplicity Principle, argues that when confronting limitless choice and endlessly complex factors, finding simplicity can help us move forward without being caught in the web of variables. Instead of resorting to the most simplistic answer or turning our backs entirely on the challenges, finding simplicity helps us manage complexity and live a life of meaning. Our ancient rabbis also sought simplicity when trying to settle their debates. In the Talmud, when they found a moment of uncertainty, they would say, "Tafasta meruba lo tafasta." If you grasp many, you grasp nothing at all. But tafasta me'at tafasta. If you grab a little, you can hold on to something. Try to carry all of the big rocks, to consider every factor, to care and act on every single issue, and you can end up with nothing at all. We face big, complex problems in our world today. When we consider the war in Gaza and the chaos of domestic politics, the numerous sides and lack of a perfect solution can leave us feeling torn and confused. The hate and extremism that surrounds us and the dizzying pace of technological change can leave us feeling alone, our lives upended. Try to manage every responsibility and please every person, and you will end up grasping too much and only end up with nothing. But as Pirkei Avot teaches, it is not incumbent upon you to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. Our task is to find simplicity, to figure out which of those big rocks we are going to carry, what our piece of the work is. Whether you're approaching your jar of political opinions or your jar of retirement, the jar of managing relationships or the jar of your entire life, we do not have room for every big rock. We need to find simplicity to move forward. Hobsbawm teaches that we do so by starting with clarity of purpose. When there are so many factors and perspectives to weigh, clarity of purpose helps us focus on what is most important to determine our decisions, viewpoints, and next steps. 2 years ago, Madeline and I wanted to buy a new car. It was going to be our first big purchase after ordination. And we started talking about the different factors to consider. Should we go hybrid or electric? Does how we feel about Elon Musk rule out Tesla? We're only 2 people, so how much space do we really need? What color should our car be? What features do we want? And we researched and talked and considered every possible combination of factors. And then we got into a car accident. We were fine, but our old car was totaled, and in a moment, our purpose changed. No longer were we dreaming and planning to buy the perfect car, not that we could ever figure out which the perfect one was. We needed something safe, in our budget, and that we could drive away with before insurance stopped paying for our rental. With that clarity of purpose, the choice became clear. We test drove 2 cars, picked one, and drove it off the lot. Tens of thousands of miles later, I know we made the right choice, even though we didn't consider every possible factor imaginable, just the most important ones in that moment. But you don't need to wait for some external factor to come crashing into you before you decide on your purpose. Clarity of purpose allows us to stay on our path and dismiss extraneous factors. Whether you are considering the purpose of your vacation or the purpose of your vote, whether or not you want to buy the latest piece of technology or how you want to spend retirement, if you're evaluating how you feel about military actions or if you've attained your ideal of perfect work-life balance, in order to consider any of those, you need your purpose, the core values or desires, the big rocks that will be driving your decision. The high holiday season is an opportunity for each of us to reflect on our purpose, to consider which big rocks we are going to put in our limited jar. With the book of life open, we pause to consider if we acted according to our purpose and aligned with our values. We recognize that only so many big rocks fit into our jar, and we find simplicity by choosing for ourselves. Jewish tradition teaches that God does not judge us compared to one another, but only whether we act according to our greatest potential, our individualized purpose. And this is why Hobsbawm shares in her book that individuality is essential for simplicity. We must decide for ourselves from the pile of far too many big rocks which ones we are taking with us. Our individuality allows us to affirm that choice and securely leave the rest behind. The theologian and minister Howard Thurman said, "There is in you something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine within yourself. It is the only true guide you will ever have, and if you cannot hear it, you will all your life spend your days on the ends of strings that someone else pulls." We each have that voice inside of us. Maybe it is easily accessible, or perhaps it is buried deep inside, but the sound of the genuine is present. When we can define that sound for ourselves, we know how to respond. When the world tries to hand us a big rock and convince us that it is the most important rock we could possibly carry. To try and carry everyone else's big rocks is to live on the ends of strings pulled by someone else. And the strings and the rocks will multiply until lo tafasta, you drop them all. You have to choose. And the person sitting next to you might choose differently. Neither of you are turning pebbles into big rocks, but only out of the mountain of possibilities, you are filling your jar differently. Part of living in a rich and complex community is that everybody's jar is shaped slightly differently and carries different big rocks. We move forward together, whether as a family, as a team at work, a community, or a country, when we agree on which big rocks we are centering and which we will collectively leave behind. But before we do that work collectively, we must do it individually. Each person must hear the call of the genuine within them and say, "I am enough. I know which big rocks are important to me in this moment." In the face of the complexity in our world, only you know which values, activities, people, and considerations will fill up your jar. And while you acknowledge there are other big rocks you could carry, you let them go for now. It is this way that we can each align with our own individualized purpose. This way, we can make 5786 the year of simplicity. Shana Tova.
the lies I believed got the better of me. Never thought there could be so much doubt. All the blame and the hate, the self-hurt and the heartbreak, a fist that kept holding me down. And I was my own worst enemy. And I found my way through it all. And finally I believe I'm enough, just as I am. Feel right at home anywhere that I stand. Hold out my heart in the palm of my hand, and I live my life like nobody else can. I am enough. I am enough for the laughter, the life that I'm after, enough for my wildest dreams. 'Cause every flaw from my toe to my jaw is exactly where it's supposed to be. And I know I've got something to say. And I'm gonna remind myself every day I'm enough, just as I am. Feel right at home anywhere that I stand. Hold out my heart in the palm of my hand, and I live my life like nobody else can. I am enough. Oh, I used to look in the mirror and see all the fear. I could see all the fear in my eyes. Then I saw it get clearer like the blue